Psychopomps are beings, spirits, angels, devils, or deities in many faiths who have the duty of escorting recently deceased souls from Earth to the afterlife. The name Psychopomps derives from the Greek word Psychopompos, which literally translates to guide of souls. Their responsibility lies in providing guidance and not to judge the departed, though some are appointed with that responsibility. Psychopomps regularly appear in funerary art and have been represented as anthropomorphic animals throughout history and throughout cultures, including but not limited to dogs, ravens, crows, vultures, and owls, to name a few. They are frequently depicted as enormous flocks of birds standing outside the homes of the dying. For as long as humans have been able to conceive of the abstract world, they have created forms and personifications of death across the millennia. While the oldest representation of a psychopomp is difficult to establish, the trope itself can be found across numerous cultures. To a living, sentient being, death is the unimaginable, the reality ender, and yet the unavoidable. In their attempt to soothe their fear of the permanent darkness, the psychopomp was devised in order to provide a sense of companionship in the unknown world of the dead. Psychopomps are primarily liminal entities. Liminal relates to a transitional or initial stage of a process. They rule over the desolate borderlands that connect the physical and spiritual realms. They wait for souls and guide them to their destinations in safety. Sometimes they also take those souls from the realm of the living. The portrayal and understanding of psychopomps can vary greatly across cultures. In some ways, acting as a warm and welcoming parental figure, leading you through to the other side, or a valiant warrior shining a path for you in your agonizing purgatory. And other times, it may be an ominous and brooding force that seeks only to drag you permanently into the irredeemable realm of the wicked. When represented as an animal, they remain a perennial cause for superstition, even in the face of intellectual modernity. The owl is a great example of this phenomenon. Its shrieks in the dead of night conjure up thoughts of impending doom. Its mere visual presence signals an omen, a message that death may soon be at your destination, or that of a loved one. Though there are countless examples, I will be listing a few very notable ones, starting with the Grim Reaper. Widely referred to as the taker of all life to all who have ever seen his imagery. During the 14th century, the Grim Reaper seems to have been conjured up in Europe. During this time, Europe was coping with the Black Death, which was thought to be the outcome of the plague, and was at the time the deadliest pandemic the world had ever seen. According to estimates, the pandemic killed around 1/3 of Europe's entire population, with some regions of the continent suffering significantly more casualties than others. The plague had several outbreaks in those decades, killing millions of people at every occasion. Therefore, it's very obvious that the European survivors were constantly thinking about death, and it is not strange that the Grim Reaper was manifested in their folklore. However, why does he have a skeletal form? Why does he wield a scythe, and why does he wear a black robe? Skeletons, which represent the human body after it is decomposed, are used as a symbol of death. The black robe is said to be a reference to the gowns worn by religious leaders of the time during funeral services. Scythes were used by harvesters to reap or harvest crops that were ready to be plucked from the ground during this historical period, making them an appropriate representation of agricultural techniques and a fitting tool for the reaper of souls. Hermes is the Greek god of commerce, but is more famous for being the messenger of the gods. He is the only Greek god permitted to visit heaven, earth, and Hades. From his ability to traverse between worlds, he is also a guide for the dead, leading them to the entrance of Hades as they awaited Charon, the ferryman of the underworld, to arrive with his boat and sail them along the river Styx and Acheron. Charon performed this service for a fee, and thus people would place coins in the mouths of their deceased to be able to fulfill his donation. In the absence of his payment, Charon would ignore the soul in question, who would then wander on the shores for centuries. The Disney interpretation of the story of Hercules presents appearances by both Hermes and Charon. The famous Archangel Michael is the most powerful archangel of Yahweh in Abrahamic tradition. He is the commander of all angels and archangels, and the appointed defender of the Israelites. As a result, he is an intercessor between God and humanity, and he assists in accompanying the souls of the righteous dead to paradise. He contested against Satan for the ownership of the prophet Moses when he died. However, I propose a more fitting Abrahamic Psychopomp archetype in the angel Azrael. Azrael is an archangel who is a lesser-known angel of death that guides souls to the afterlife, and in some traditions, he dwells in hell in order to avenge souls who have been wronged in life. Azrael is mostly mentioned in Islamic traditions and marginally in Jewish texts. Anubis, aka Anpu, is the ancient Egyptian god of mummification, embalming, the protector of graves, and the lord of the dead, until he was replaced in this role by his alleged father, Osiris. Anubis also judges the souls of the dead, testing the purity of their hearts by weighing a soul's heart on the scales of justice against a feather of the goddess Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If the soul is deemed worthy, they proceed to the immortal afterlife with the god Osiris. If the soul's heart outweighs the feather, they are consumed by the crocodile-headed goddess Amut, subjected to a permanent state of restless terror. A common media depiction of Anubis can be seen in American Gods, where he tends to the dead and appears to souls in transition. The Shinigami, literally meaning death god in Japanese, is a supernatural being in the Shinto folklore known for leading humans to their deaths. The closest reference to a Shinigami in Shinto is Izanami, one of the two created deities alongside Izanagi, who is the goddess of life and death. Shinigami was not a fully fleshed out concept until regular contact with Western conceptions of death and its surrounding entities. The best known examples of Shinigami depictions in the modern day can be derived from anime such as Bleach, in which the Soul Reapers / Shinigami are the main presiders over the afterlife and guiding and purifying deceased human souls. Also, in the popular anime Naruto, a powerful summoning jutsu called the Reaper Death Seal summons the Shinigami, who takes the souls of both the summoner's enemy and the summoner themselves. In Haitian Voudou, there exists a group of powerful beings known as the Loi, whose belief was brought by enslaved Africans to Haiti, who intercede for humanity on behalf of the supreme creator god, Bon Dieu. Of those Loi, there are those with the family name Gede, who embody the powers of death and fertility. Two notable beings are Papa Gede and Baron Samedi. Papa Gede is considered as the first man who ever died. He is a benevolent psychopomp who waits at the crossroads to take souls into the afterlife. He can intercede on behalf of dying children to avert their death until its natural occurrence. His nefarious counterpart is named Baron Samedi. He is the leader of the Gede, and when someone dies, it is said he assists in the digging of their graves and greets the deceased soul to guide them into the afterlife. Often dressed in a black suit and top hat, he loves to partake in rum and tobacco. Please rest assured that there are numerous other examples of psychopomps. Sources will be linked in the description. In our human quest to conquer death, we have manifested countless depictions of either a much-needed guide through the haze of purgatory, or we've succumbed to our fears to envision beings constantly sharpening their reaping tools in order to make our inevitable end that much more terrifying. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more videos.